Present.
Commissioner Meredith Brett,
Here.
Commissioner Joseph Cruz,
Visit.
Commissioner Ashley Arianes,
I think I have an excuse for her. I gotta communicate with her.
and Commissioner Joseph Dominguez.
Okay, we'll go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was expecting a fight song to go on after.
Feel free.
School districts.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll go then to Spanish, and then they'll go on to the salute to the flag of New Mexico. So I'm always.
You don't know where to go next? I don't know. My school district had Adelita, so it was a different world, so.
They still do.
Yeah. So that was always interesting, and then the Notre Dame fight song is the Robertson one, so that was easy to fall in line. So, okay, we've got approval of the agenda, and looks like,
Chair, I have a recommendation on the approval of the agenda is to remove the suggestions from City Manager Tim Montgomery. He is unable to make it today, given the water situation we're in. But he will be attending at our next meeting, which will be our joint meeting with the council on March 11th.
March 11th is a joint meeting?
Changed it.
so if we just delete that item from the agenda, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented with the amendment.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public input, Cassandra.
No public input this afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So the first item is review of completed assignments by our very own city attorney, Zamora. But before I go on, I want to at least recognize one member of this body up here. And I just heard from a little bird that there's a new exalted ruler. Is that what they call it? From the Elks,
Yes, sir.
just elected last night, so he's buying pizza for a year is what I hear.
All right, congratulations.
So congratulations, Mr. Joe.
Thank you, sir. My wife will be very busy, sir.
So, next time you'll come with all the garb and all the stuff that
What are
they
they
decorate
talking about?
themselves with.
The president of the Elks Lodge.
So,
Cruz, after our meeting, I have a story for.
Okay.
so that's the good thing. So, Mr. Gino, if you don't mind, sir, we will reactivate you for this meeting.
Mr. Chair, members of the Charter Commission, a lot of homework between the last meeting and this one. From my notes, I made edits in your thicker packet that's always labeled discussion draft of possible proposals. You will see on page 6 of 7 highlighted language. That language, those are the only changes to this packet, but those edits were based on the feedback from the commission last time around, where new language is in green, and sorry, when it's printed out, it makes it hard to read. The yellow was just what I had left in before, because I think the body was considering whether or not they wanted to make any changes to that language, or the commission, I'm sorry. But I did make the edit, the clarification that at the first meeting on or after the first day of January, added that language. And then I had made the edit taking down for, this is in 207B. The old language, which I think is problematic with the Open Meetings Act, said special meetings may be held on a call of 3 or more counselors. To avoid that, I had taken it down to 2 or more. And then because we have the possibility of going up to 8 members, the feedback, based on feedback from the commission, I changed it to of the number of counselors equal to 1 less than a quorum of the members of the governing body. And so now we're not defining a certain number that could be out of date or out of step. It's just 1 less than a quorum.
Okay,
So we came up with
that's
that.
what we said.
Okay, and then at the bottom, under quorum, again, same type of edit, because if we're 4 or we're 8, if it starts with 3 members, would be a quorum. That doesn't, that wouldn't be correct if it went up to 8. So now quorum reads, a majority of the total number of members of the governing body shall constitute a quorum. The word total number is important because you don't want it being confused with the members present being a quorum. It's just a way of counting. A quorum is 3 out of 5 or 5 out of 8. Anyway, that's that edit. So simple edits to that packet. Any questions on those edits?
Members, anybody, questions? And I think we're happy with that.
You still have decisions to make within the packet. I won't start there necessarily because we want to move forward. But we can come back to the packet after I introduce the next stuff.
Go ahead.
Okay, now, what the commission had asked was for me to do a pre-read of Mayor, Municipal Court, and Article 5, Officers, Directors, and Employees. So that I would make any edits that are probably necessary out of law and revisions to the law. So that's what I did. That's gonna hopefully make this meeting faster, because I'm not giving it to you at the meeting, or I'm not reading it off to you and preparing it for a future meeting. So hopefully this helps us speed up. I'll start on Article 3, Mayor, Qualifications and Election. We've seen this before with the counselors. We're just updating things to comply with the New Mexico Local Election Act. So mayor and mayoral candidates shall meet the qualifications required by, boom, 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 okay? Shall be elected at large within the city, shall serve a 4-year term, commencing with the, and it's, I needed this clarification because you've got a resolution from the governing body that shifted the election date for the mayor because of the, once we moved the elections to November instead of March, it changed the election days. So that's why I changed the date and recited regular local election of November 2025. Okay? So that brings that fully up to date, compliant with the law, compliant with the election cycle. Any questions on that section?
Real quick, if you don't mind, if we're going down this almost review style,
Yeah.
if something comes up that he's not talking about and you all want to talk about it while we're going down through this, I think we should jump in. Is that fine? So, is that clear to everybody? If you know, if it's A or something and we want to talk about it, although he didn't highlight it, I think we should jump on it. That way we don't have to come back and do it again. Is that better? Go ahead.
Not just relevant to Article 3, but to all elected positions. I had asked one time if the governing body would be able to or want to impose term limits.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know where we would put that, or if anybody has any thoughts on that at all, but it just seems like something.
That was part of my homework assignment, to do the legal research on that, and I did. So term limits are only allowed, it's a strange way to say it. Term limits are only allowed if the Constitution of the state of New Mexico provides for it. And so, and that's the case law out there. And the Constitution has been amended twice for term limits. One is, in the Constitution, it used to say that governors were elected for a 1-year term and couldn't run for re-election. That was amended back in the 90s to say 2 consecutive terms and then would have to take a break before running again. They couldn't run for a third term. Then on counties, because there are term limits for county offices. Your commissioners, your clerks, your sheriffs, all of them are on 2-year terms. That amendment came later, and that's in the New Mexico Constitution for counties. There is no such amendment for municipalities. And so municipalities, we can't impose term limits until authorized by the Constitution. But I did do the research.
Thank you, Gino.
So,
You're welcome.
so the only one that is open, and maybe it's not considered county, the district attorney doesn't have a term limit either, right?
Correct? Yeah. I didn't read it to that level of detail, but I assume so because they're multi-county. Except for Doña Ana County and Bernalillo County, they tend to be multi-county, the district attorneys, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Do most states have something a little more specific than that in their constitution? It just seems odd.
Sure. I'm not aware of term limits at a municipal level. I didn't research it nationally, so
That's all right.
I would assume there may be, but it does not seem to be the trend to impose that from a state constitutional level. Okay,
Thank you.
that'll take us into section 3.02, powers and duties. No real edit here, but the discussion has come up about making things consistent about whether the mayor votes or not and when. And you do, because you're a charter organization, you do have the ability to state when a mayor votes or doesn't. And so the current language is the mayor shall be a member of the governing body entitled to cast a vote only in the event of a tie among city councilors, except as otherwise provided. I've talked about it a few times. There's confusion sometimes in ordinances. Actually, the confusion is always in ordinances. This language is here, but the ordinances sometimes say the governing body votes. Well, the mayor's part of the governing body. Does he vote? Or the council votes. Well, the mayor's not part of the council, so therefore the mayor doesn't vote. If we're looking for clarity and uniformity, we use paragraph A as the guideline. So either the mayor doesn't vote or the mayor does vote. And so that's something for you to think about. And then the ordinance will have to be cleaned up no matter what to match this language. Okay, so the only thing I did was include alternative language for the commission to see both circumstances. Not intended to advocate anyway, it's just to see what it looks like.
You know, I don't know historically how long it's been that the mayor only breaks a tie, but I know that currently that's how it's been. It seems like that's what the city council and the mayor, the governing body, would go for. And I would think if we wanted to, when it's only city council, why don't we just say city council? And when it's the governing body, say governing body.
Well,
Yeah,
well, in this setting, the mayor is the governing body.
Right, and when we don't want him to vote, we say city council.
I think
You
it'd be
want a
too
resolution,
confusing,
I
yeah.
think.
Yeah, you
I would
need a-
imagine you always want a resolution, even with 4 councilors.
Right,
If the vote's 2-2, that means nothing happens, right?
that's right.
So with
The
a,
mayor would be entitled to vote. I'll tell you where
In
we're
the
seeing
current-
games.
yeah,
The smaller your council is, the more games I've seen to be able to manipulate the vote and keep the mayor from voting. So what I've seen is, and now I'm just trying to think through it. Votes that require a majority vote of the governing body. So it needs 3 votes to pass. 1 abstains, 1 votes no, 2 vote yes, 2 votes for yes, it fails.
Yep.
And the mayor doesn't get to vote to cast that third vote. And so the smaller your governing body is, the more you can manipulate that. And it happens on hiring and termination, decisions where you need something clear cut. Somebody's on leave with pay, and there needs to be a decision, bring them back or send them out, and you can't get that third vote for that decision in those circumstances. That's what I've seen in other municipalities. And I've dealt with litigation on that and things like that. But I do agree, pick and then go forward with it. Commissioner Britt, you asked the question of how long has it been this way? In my experience, the default is that the mayor only votes to break a tie. That's the default in the municipal code for non-charter cities. And that tends to be the default in municipalities. Santa Fe, for example, in their charter, provided the mayor with a vote on everything. And so I'm just letting you know that's an option. And it avoids games. I will tell you, if it goes to 8 members, it becomes less of an issue. It's harder to gain the votes. If you've got to get 3 or 4 people to abstain from a vote to mess with your votes, it becomes harder. So that's the background. Wanted you to see the language as you think through this. It might be a question for the governing body in the joint meeting. But I'm not getting anyone pushing me one way or the other. I'm just having, the biggest issue for me is the contradictions in the language. And so we just need to pick what it is.
I guess I've had an opportunity to work as a counselor and then later on as a mayor, both of them with 8 city councilors and a mayor. And I know that the mayor's been breaking ties probably at least since the city was consolidated in 1970. What each city did before that, I can't tell you, but that's been pretty much the norm, I think. And you know, we're I think seriously considering the 8 council option that we'd like to present to the mayor and council. I think at the end of the day, the smoother that this community runs has been with the 8 councilors and the 1 mayor, breaking the tie. Santa Fe, I think, is out of norm, because I've never heard the mayor, you know, of course they want to know where he's at. He can always make a statement, that's not an issue. We did it before. But I really think that that's a safeguard to move the work of the city forward, because if not, you just keep going in a circle. You know what I mean? The next meeting, 2 guys are of a 4-member councilors, 2 are absent. You know what I mean? So then nothing happens. It's 1-1 and no, or 2-1, and it's still not the majority, right? So it just goes on in a loop. I just see that the work of the community doesn't get done when there's all these opportunities to game the system. So that's how I look at it.
To give a little bit of background, from my experience with Santa Fe, being in-house as the city attorney, I'll use a northern phrase. This is the yapake explanation. The mayor in Santa Fe, being one of 9, said, "I'm required to come to every meeting. And I'm sitting here governing 8 people. The odds of a tie are really low. Why the heck am I here? You make me come here. I'm here twice a month, and I don't get to do anything but run the meeting, right?" So I recall a couple mayors in a row, just the push of, if I'm going to be here, I'd like to be on the record for my positions. By the way, some mayors will argue, I don't want to be on the record for my positions. And then the other is, if I'm going to be up here, I just want to be able to vote. So just showing alternative language, not advocating one way or the other. Back to Commissioner Brett's question, the norm is only voting in a tie. But there's also this option.
So You know, in regards to where we're at right now, have we sort of picked a direction, governing body or what is it?
Council.
Or the council, yeah. Have we picked a direction where we want to go yet? Have we made that somewhat clear or we're still up in the air on that one?
We're still up in the air, and so that's,
That's under administrative?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, A is clear. The mayor shall be a member of the governing body entitled to cast a vote only in the event of a tie among the city councilors, except as otherwise provided. That's pretty clear.
It's clear.
It gets messed up in the ordinances when they start straying from that language. And so that, after you make your decision here, if it's keep the language the same, then we just go to the ordinances and clean it up. If it changes, we've got to pick through the ordinances and make it match.
I think that's very clear. Anybody have a question on that? Makes sense to everybody?
Somewhat related question. We've discussed so many things every time, and we have sort of a consensus about many things, like 8 versus 4, for instance. We're kind of all leaning that way. Are we going to vote on every single thing that we're suggesting, or how is it going to come about?
Yes.
And do we have a clear idea of how many and which things those are?
They're keeping track of that.
Yeah, and it's what shows up in your possible proposals. And now some of them have alternatives, and you're gonna have to choose option 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
But,
Well, we will vote.
right now, these are just anticipated edits. Once you give us direction, it'll merge into the possible proposals. And then ultimately, you're going to decide which option within the possible proposals.
And we have that meeting with the city council on the 11th, so if the board doesn't mind, I'd like to visit with both Cassandra and Gino prior to that meeting, so that we're somewhat together in regards to our delivery.
Sure.
And then if we do come out with a document, to make sure and afford it to the members, ahead of time too, so that we have a pretty clear understanding of what, because don't forget, we're going through stuff, we're going to listen to the existing governing body, and we may need to rethink or go in a different direction in a couple of these. And I don't want to have anything set in concrete or stone until we're ready to vote at the very end to take it to them. And still, even at that, if it doesn't work, we might come back, do one more edit, one more review, and then go and send it back to them, and that's the end of our work. But is that fine?
That's great. To clarify my previous comments, because I may have implied you have to make all these decisions before you sit down with the council. No, you're identifying options, and you can use that meeting with the council to take the temperature of them. Or what do you guys think about option 1 on compensation, option 2, option 4, right? What do you think on the option of 4 versus 8 counselors? So you can use this document to take their temperature prior to the final vote of recommendations from this body. Okay?
We won't get through the whole charter in one meeting with them. Because
Right.
when you consider how many meetings it's taken us to get this far.
And that's not the work that's in front of us. I think they're looking at the more general stuff that they've seen issues with. And then don't forget, if we don't cover it here, an ordinance can, to some degree. But this is pretty much an important document because for whatever reason, we've been able to follow this for some time unless the Attorney General says, no, you can't have 5 city councilors, that kind of stuff. But I think it's an important process, but we won't get through all of them, and they're not gonna ask about all of them either.
They'll probably spend more time saying, hey, why don't you look at this?
Yeah.
Hey, here's my beef on this issue. Yeah. Okay,
It's an interesting process.
so 3.003 on page 2.
Does anybody have any issues with 1 through 5 on page 1? And all the way to 6, I guess, on 3.02?
No questions.
So,
Great. On 3.03, I added a notation for the need for the new paragraph. And this is really coming into play. The more modern our world is, what does absence mean? Does it mean physical absence from the meeting? Does it mean absolute absence from the meeting? Is it temporary or, or just unreachability? And so I throw all these concepts out here, distinguish between temporary absence and absence based on disability or unable to be reached, versus need clarification regarding remote, not necessarily versus. In addition, need clarification regarding remote attendance of meeting, et cetera, whether or not someone maintains a mayor role when remotely attending. So let me give you the full range of context. Let's start with a meeting. Now, under Open Meetings Act, you can infrequently attend remotely. If the mayor attends remotely and is part of the meeting, probably the same thing, and the mayor presides. Unless you say physical presence to preside. So remote attendance, probably fine. Remote attendance from, Plaza Hotel, because they're stuck there for some reason, fine. But what about remote attendance from, San Diego or something, right? Or Mexico. They're on the beach in Mexico, remote attending. Is the mayor presiding? Should be fine. It's the equivalent. Or by phone. So things to think about that. But this paragraph always also deals with, hey, the mayor's pro tem is in charge when the mayor is absent, not just at the meetings, but outside the meetings. But now we have cell phones. Now we have Zoom. Now we've got so many things that the mayor's not out of touch. So that if the mayor goes to U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting in Washington, D.C. to lobby Congress, does that mean someone else takes over his duties while he's gone? Well, he's available by phone immediately. So that type of clarification needs to be out there. I have received that question in lots of municipalities from a lot of pro tems who want to be mayor, right? So, hey, mayor drove to Cruces, I'm mayor now, right? Not necessarily, right? But there needs to be clarity because they say, well, when the mayor's absent, I'm mayor. And I had that come up in another municipality in the last week.
Who takes care of the codes, who takes care of the red box, the red phone, all that stuff, right? Yeah, it can get a little crazy, but is there a happy medium?
I would say the happy medium is closer to that first sentence. Absence based on disability or unable to be reached or perform the functions of, I'm going to write this down, or perform the functions of mayor.
So if he's out in the middle of a desert somewhere without a phone, no Zoom, no nothing,
And there's
just no way.
water emergency.
Yeah.
You can't find them.
The mayor pro temp can move forward, okay.
And take
I
those
think that's a happy,
From my perspective, I think that remote attendance and technology, the cell phone, in today's world, allows for attendance from just about anywhere.
And we're,
Um,
go ahead,
So,
sorry.
so from my perspective, I like that to be as clear as possible, and for that to count as the mayor or a counselor, for that matter, being in attendance if they're attending via a video conference link for that meeting.
Or phone,
Well, I think phones are, if you could phone in, you could video conference in, because a phone can video conference. I think video conference is a little more,
yeah.
it's a little bit more accountable because you have video and picture involved.
So,
you won't have it, Mayor, that somebody figured out through AI how to manipulate what he says, right?
That's right.
So you almost have to see is that actually him moving his mouth or somebody else.
Yeah, I'll just be surprised if AI can match our moch.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know about that, it's gonna be tough.
depends, super north or sort of north.
We're AI immune.
Yeah, well, I think, maybe what I guess Benito's asking, maybe we can clarify it a little bit more that because of technology,
Yeah.
we understand that that could be constituted as sufficient
Yeah.
to be present.
Reachable through technology.
Yeah,
Should we put some kind of a, however, not always, not constantly, but only, you know, under extenuating circumstances or something like that?
Temporary.
Yeah.
well, you know, the times that I know that mayors have just said, you know, I can't make the next meeting, I'm out at a conference, or I'm out for surgery, you really don't want to bother him, okay? I think the best thing to do is just allow the mayor pro tem to take over the meeting. And sometimes because, you know, they're traveling or they missed the flight, you know, that happened not too long ago. So all these things that happen, I think at that point, it's, you know, the city's business still has to take place. You have a mechanism, take advantage of it.
Okay, I made some good notes off of that.
Good deal. Go ahead, continue.
Okay, that completes 3.03. Moving into vacancy in office. We needed a couple of clarifications here, so I'll talk broadly before I get into the details. Again, back to the Local Election Act. There have been changes in elections. And meaning, we used to have special elections available to municipalities for any whim at all. As long as you paid for it and went through the process, you could do a special election. This old language reflects that. Under the revisions of the Local Election Act, special elections are only for bonds and other financial matters.
Good question, right?
Right, they're for bond questions. And they're not for candidate questions anymore. And so this language needs to be updated for that, because the old language said, if there's a vacancy, and it gets complicated here, but if there's a vacancy, then they appoint a mayor, call a special election, and then have a special election for the remainder of that term. We're not able to do that anymore. So the language I wrote in, the revisions I propose are, the council shall appoint from among its membership a person to serve as mayor. It's just a clarification. It was vague. Until the next regular local election. And the council seat shall become vacant, to be filled as provided in Article 2 herein. So that's the main cleanup there. Is okay, they serve until we hit the next election cycle. Then in C, I clean it up again to say, at the next local election following the vacancy, the office of the mayor shall be placed on the ballot either to fill the remaining 2 years left in the regular mayoral term, or for a 4-year term if the next regular local election coincides with the regular mayoral term. A lot of language to say if there's 2 years left, they get reelected for 2 more years. If it expired, then it's open for a 4-year term. Does that make sense?
So the only thing I made a note on this, the mayor resigns, the council has to pick within, there's no time limit on that. Should we put at the next city council meeting?
What I'm used to, and I'm gonna steal this from the schools, within 45 days
But we
of the date of vacancy.
But you scratch that out.
No, the within,
That's different though.
Yeah, you have it scratched out, 45 days.
oh yeah, the office is not filled within 45 days, a special election shall be called.
But we can't have it, right?
But you can't.
No, but we're trying to make sure that they figure who's gonna be mayor.
Yeah, I think in the initial drafting, I was avoiding the, and then what?
Okay.
It's not filled within 45 days, and then what? in thinking about it a little bit longer, then that gives somebody the ability to file a declaratory action to force it. To say, hey, we didn't decide, council has to go and, we're forcing council to go decide. Where that language, why I'm hesitant in this, is going back to schools. They have to fill a vacancy on the board within 45 days. If they don't, then NMPED fills the vacancy.
We don't have that
We
here.
don't have that. We don't have local government division of the Department of Finance. They don't have the authority to appoint people. So I just don't know what to do on that. And I guess maybe that's why I
I
left
guess
it.
my question is, what if they don't decide? And it prolongs, it's 30 days, it's 60 days.
We'll go back to the school example. In the school example, NMPED, I'm thinking of a particular district. NMPED filled the position because over 45 days, it was a 2-2 vote for every single candidate. And they never got that 3-1 vote to appoint somebody. 45 days expired, and they just,
Pick somebody.
they defaulted to PED, and PED picked off of the list of applicants.
Okay, considering what you said, how do we still address ours if it's 30 days and no one stepped up?
So I think by putting the 30 or 40 day timeline in there, it allows either a member of the governing body or the member of the governing body or a member of the public to file an action to force them to meet until they pick. But I don't know how to solve it. I don't know how to solve it because we don't have an authority, a state authority to appoint in lieu of us. So it just becomes a disaster. I mean,
Sandra, you went through some stuff, right?
I think it just keeps the governing body on it, like we have to do this within this amount of time.
the president, the mayor pro tem will remain the mayor pro tem until that.
That's what I was gonna ask, yeah. So municipalities, do you know how many, just the mayor pro tem ends up the mayor until that term is over? Or there has to be an appointment of the mayor?
Every year when they have to reappoint somebody for mayor pro tem.
That's for Mayor
It's in
Pro
here.
Oh,
Tem.
yeah, that's right, yeah, I forget, okay.
Yeah. Now,
So the mayor pro tem could fill that position
mayor pro tem can fill that position.
for the remainder,
I forget where, let's see, I can add up above in B, during service in the absence of the mayor or maybe down in absence, I put vacancy. I'm trying to think. All right, well, I think it's up top. In 3.03, I'll have to think about it, but I think I have to address vacancy there. Or if there's a vacancy in office. So Mayor Pro Tem serves as mayor if the mayor's absent, or if there's a vacancy in the position. And then down here, when there's a vacancy, they appoint. And now they're not on a timeline, and if they go 2-2-2-2, the Pro Tem still acts as mayor until it's filled. So you're not going without a mayor, you're just putting the Pro
I
Tem.
think we're still in here.
Yeah, but see, we're still at a point where, if this is correct, I'm trying to follow, because we just had it happen here. The mayor pro tem still can vote,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So what if it's still 2-2? Unless, there has to be something to make them do it, figure something out among the four. Well, it could be among the 8 later on, if that's the case, but
And then those chances go down.
yeah, well,
4-4,
yeah.
you're gonna break.
But I'll tell you, at 2-2
Yeah.
is tough.
That school district, they went 45 days voting 2-2.
Yeah.
Probably 15 candidates were presented to them.
And none of them, they didn't like none of them, yeah. So I guess what I'm saying, if we put the language that they've gotta pick someone by the next meeting, that really puts pressure to get it done. But I don't know if that's too much.
It's too soon. I'd say a minimum of 30 to 45. I mean, you've got 45 in there, I can return that, but
Within a month, you'll have at least one or two meetings, right? You know, no matter what time of the month it is. It could be the last day of the month, you have 30 days till
I
the
would
month.
say 45,
It's good.
would be 45 days would be the,
I think you have to put a barrier.
I do agree with you on that. I think there does have to be a time restraint.
Yeah.
Because then it could
We
just
need to
go
move on. you know?
circles and circles and circles. The mayor pro tem sits there, you still keep getting those same votes over and over.
And it's,
public pressure.
Right.
It says 45
Right.
days. You're not doing it. Do your job.
yeah.
Okay. So 45 days, I'm circling that. I'll reintegrate 45 days.
Okay.
Either they appoint the mayor pro tem as it, or, another counselor, or,
Okay.
Well, when that whole thing happened at first, they were gonna have a special election. Everybody was ready to do that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, no, you can't do that because we can't have special elections with candidates.
Right.
Like the old days, you could, that would happen at a whim, but not anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Actually, it's an easy fix. At the beginning of B, the first sentence, it would say, within 45 days of the vacancy, the council shall appoint from its membership. So on and so forth. Does that make sense? It's an easy fix.
okay, so
Got it.
we're talking just the mayor, right? We're not talking councilors here, right?
No, we're not talking
Because
council.
councilors are another one.
Yeah, it's a different section.
Because see what happened with us, our mayor moved up, then there was a vacancy for council. That created
Yes.
that went through a little bit of a dramatic piece there. But they finally picked some guy. I don't know who that guy is, but they finally picked some other guy. That's what I hear. I don't know. That's what I hear. They picked another guy to be the city councilor. I don't know anything about that.
That's right, but you're telling your mom on him.
I'm gonna tell my mom on him. Okay, so that takes care of
We
three
fixed
point oh
that
four?
one, and I will, up above in 3.03, I'll add the language regarding vacancy.
Okay. Is that all right with everybody?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. That completes mayor.
Yeah.
The suggested revisions. That would take us then to Article 4, municipal court, is that right? Yeah.
And I meant to catch up with our current judge to find out if there's anything out there that we should at least take a look at, and I didn't get a chance. The last few weeks have been a little crazy for me, but we'll review what you said, and then if there's anything that stands out, I'll bring it back at the next meeting, but I just didn't get a chance to catch up with our judge.
Feel free to circulate this to him and/or invite him,
Okay.
in case he has suggestions other than what's here. But right now, this is just sort of the basic legal requirements. Same thing, this is to match up with the local election code on qualifications. And what's interesting, as you read through this, in the charter, it said the municipal judge shall. But it never required the candidates for municipal judge to meet the qualifications. And the local code requires it for both the office holder and the candidates. So I made that update, municipal judge and municipal candidates shall meet the qualifications required by, we've gone over those, but those are the residency qualifications. B, shall be elected at large within the city. I took that language from the mayoral section, and that just needed to be clear. It is an at-large position. And then, so I added that as a new paragraph, and then we go back to the old paragraph. And they shall possess those qualifications during the entire term. Then in section 4.03, we're just updating, again, because we've extended everybody's terms to match the Local Election Act. So the term shall be filled for a period of 4 years, commencing at the regular municipal election in November 2027. And that gets the judicial position on track for 4-year terms. On the back page, page 2 of 2, we're dealing with vacancies in office again. I didn't have the type of changes we had for For the mayor, something to point out though, vacancy in office, they use 30 days, within 30 days of the vacancy here. We want it to be consistent at 45, which now it's not that you're picking one amongst yourselves. You gotta go out in the field and find people and do an application. I recommend an application process.
Yeah.
So I would recommend you up that in C2 to 45 days.
How much is it gonna hang up the whole system of the court to be without a judge for up to 45 days?
You have B, 4.05B, temporary absence. And I'm gonna, temporary absence or vacancy.
Yeah,
So let's add that language, or vacancy. Mayor shall appoint a qualified person to act as temporary or alternate municipal judge, subject to confirmation of the governing body. So they can do that tomorrow and
Yeah.
then go hold an application process. Good question. And the necessary edit. So we've flagged 2 edits that I don't have in here. Add or vacancy in paragraph B, and in paragraph C2, take it to 45 days instead of 30. That takes us to C3, which is just matching up with our new election system. At the next regular local election following the vacancy, the office of the municipal judge shall be placed on the ballot either to fill the remaining 2 years left in the regular municipal judge term or for a 4-year term if the next regular local election coincides with the regular municipal term.
That matches the other ones, right?
Yes, cut and pasted it from the mayor so it'd be consistent.
Let me ask a question on A, 405A. And it happened while I was here, and I know it's happened here before, when the judge recuses himself. In one case, I appointed someone who was a judge for something else. The second time, I didn't appoint anybody, and it just flows to magistrate or district court? How does that issue goes? What happens if you don't appoint, if the mayor doesn't? I'm trying to remember, and maybe I'm off.
I think it does.
It becomes a procedural matter. What ends up happening is probably the police refile in magistrate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think one case, I didn't appoint someone. The first time I think I got a judge.
So it's either gonna hold until the vacancy is filled, it's gonna be stuck in the municipal court, or the one filing, whether that's the police or a local DA, they're gonna refile it in county.
There's recourse.
There is recourse.
Okay. All right, well, that sounds good. Any other questions? Anybody else?
No questions.
I think you better prep all of them from now on. Gino, we're moving pretty good here.
I'm gonna throw in a little question.
Go ahead.
In A, recusal of judge, this appointment needs to be an actual judge?
No.
No.
Okay, because it says an alternate judge, and then in B, it says a qualified person. And that was just a little confusing to me, whether in recusal case, it had to be an actual judge of some kind,
Right.
retired judge or
The
something.
person to serve in the role of judge.
So should it say qualified person, or is it clear to everybody but me? If it is, I'm okay with it.
Where are you looking again? I'm
It's
sorry.
under B and A. They're two
Under,
different words.
under A, the mayor who shall appoint an alternate judge to preside over said case.
And then in B, it's a qualified person who gets appointed. Just different language, does it mean
I think
different things?
I think it's one of the
Or it
same.
does. Or it does mean different things.
Or does it? And does it need to be clearer?
I'll look for the various
I think it's one
places.
of the same.
I think it's the same.
I agree too.
Well, it's not up to us.
That's how you interpret it.
Yeah. But it does say the mayor shall appoint a qualified person to act as a temporary or alternate municipal judge, 405B.
And we look at C, I'm sorry,
C does it, B,
uh,
A,
A and B.
an alternate judge,
So for clarification there, I can put a qualified person to serve as alternate judge.
That works for me.
That covers both sides.
That's clear.
If you get that one worked on, Gino, could you get it to me so I can get it to the judge right away? I'd like to. I should have done that earlier, but life.
You're not perfect.
No, I'm not far from that. I'm far from that. Every day I say, oh my God, my list didn't shrink.
Okay, Article 5, if we're done with municipal court.
Anybody else? Let's hear that. Article 5, some interesting stuff here.
Okay, let me just, what I'm gonna do is, I will first go to the edits, and then I'll talk about the highlights. So the edits,
Are they back on this other document?
we're on,
Discussion?
Article 5, officers, directors, and employees,
Yeah, but did we have it?
standalone document.
Yeah, I have that one here. What, 5.01 city manager, all that stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And let's go to page 2 of 4, section 5.04.
Oh, okay, there you had it. Okay, I knew I seen them, I couldn't find them.
Okay. There you go. So in 5.04A, I do make recommendations for these edits to deal with what a lot of communities your size deal with. There aren't always enough qualified attorneys who are willing to serve as city attorney. They've got their own contracts, they serve on contract, but they don't want to be the employee, or you can't find someone, or you post the position and you don't get someone qualified. They're right out of law school and maybe they don't meet the qualifications. So the current language says, there shall be a city attorney who shall serve as legal advisor, and then it's got a lot more shalls, that they shall, somewhere in here it says they shall reside in the city, right?
Yeah,
Um,
San Miguel County,
yeah.
within 90 days of appointment.
Right, oh, it goes down below.
Yeah.
Right. And so currently, the city does not have a city attorney, for whatever reasons. And they have, like every other city has, a bunch of law firms on contract. And so it's really just turning it from shall to may. And then when they appoint a city attorney as an employee, then that employee has to meet these conditions. Okay, that's my only recommended edit there to reflect how things are actually being handled. And they call me city attorney, but Ambrosio sits in the same spot and he's a city attorney, or whoever. There are a few other lawyers on contract. There are probably about 5 lawyers on contract at this point.
Is there anything in the charter to that effect, or does there need to be?
Well, there is, in here, the last sentence of A, the governing body may contract for such other specialized legal services from outside counsel as it deems appropriate. So it allows for it already.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, any questions just on those edits? Just on those edits.
In regards to the shall,
Right, that's what.
you said may, and it says shall here still. Oh, the mayor may appoint a city, okay.
The mayor may appoint.
Now we're going from shall appoint to may appoint, and shall be employed by the city, okay. The words are too close together.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I see it now, okay. That sounds good. Anybody have any questions with that? I guess the out is, the governing body may contract for such legal services from outside the legal counsel as it deems appropriate,
Yeah. Right now, they would, there's an argument that someone could say you're out of compliance with the charter because you never hired a city attorney.
There's not any, nobody wants to be.
Right.
At one time, we had attorneys in the town, now we don't. It's like doctors.
I've been doing work with you guys for almost 30 years, and I've worked with a lot of city attorneys in the middle of all of them. Yeah. But no, yeah, it's hard. And the harder part is in private practice, you make a lot more than in government practice, especially with with medium-sized municipalities.
Well, when I was here back in the 1800s, we had a full-time attorney, okay? But we also had a contract with him, or I guess our contract said that he could work on private stuff if he didn't have anything pressing here at City Hall. So that was our out back then, so they could go do private work. And in some cases, he did other cities. You know, Dave did Santa Rosa and Maxwell, and I can't remember, Mora County.
And that
Crazy.
remains the norm.
Yeah.
That remains the norm. Most cities do not have full-time employed city attorneys. They contract.
So you really believe there's not enough attorneys? I'm just kidding. Oh, no, that's a loaded question there.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Do we have you on record, Gino?
Yeah. Yes, there should be more attorneys produced. You go to Massachusetts, and a public defender position, a vacancy at the public defender's office will get 400 applicants. Because there are that many attorneys up there who want to be public defender. You can't fill public defender or district attorney positions in the entire state of New Mexico.
Yeah.
So you're saying we need to recruit from Massachusetts? Is that what you're saying, sir?
There you go.
We're recruiting the wrong place.
They bring someone from Boston, Massachusetts to be a public defender in Roswell. Way back, 20 years ago, I recruited.
You introduced him to green chili first, or what?
That's right.
That's what it was.
Okay, now the controversial stuff. The bigger, broader discussion.
We're going back to page 1.
Going back to page 1 through 4. I have highlighted issues that have been questions for review. You're gonna see a pattern of, and of course, charter changes happen with some of the issues of the day can be influenced. The way it's played out, I've heard feedback on a charter requirement to put up 2 candidates for approval and sort of I'm gonna phrase it this way intentionally, have a beauty contest in front of council on TV to see who they pick. Rather than requiring a process to identify someone and then putting forward one. So, and in other instances, sometimes they're only getting 1 applicant for some of these positions. They only have 1 person to bring forward, 1 person that meets qualifications. They may have 3 applicants, but only 1 meets qualifications. And they're dealing with this requirement to bring a minimum of 2 people. And sometimes they're telling a finalist, hey, you're applying from out of town or out of state. We need you here because we've got to present you in the other one. And you're number 2 and my number 1 recommendation is here. So I understand why it's there or why a council may have said, we don't want a candidate shoved down our throat, but at the same time, forcing 2 candidates is presenting issues.
Well, we could change shall to may once again. Give options that way.
Well, if you don't mind me going back to the 1800s again, or 1900s. In the past, the way it worked is the mayor would come in, appoint someone, and if that person didn't get the votes, I think he had to wait till the next council meeting to recommend another individual, okay?
Still like that in the municipal code.
Yeah, so in other words, it worked, okay? So nonetheless, if for some reason a new administration comes in, they want a new manager, that individual's gone, automatically what's gonna happen, the new mayor will appoint someone in the interim. And I don't even wanna tell you how many interims the city's had since I can remember, but they've had more interims than actual, I think, in Las Vegas. So I think the process worked before. This 2 candidate thing, and then there's a whole bunch of things that go with applying for a position. Say it's a neighboring city manager, maybe a county manager that wants this position. Well, he sort of wants it to be confidential till it happens, okay?
Yeah.
You let the cat out of the bag and boy, all you've done now is, my county manager doesn't want to stay here no more. Well, you know what? If he wants to go, we'll give him a reason, and he still didn't get the other job, and it's over. You know what I mean? So we have slim pickings in the end of the day. I'm not in favor of two. I think there's a process already for one that was there before. And if it doesn't happen, you just have another special meeting, appoint it, get the consensus of the council, appoint one person and move on. That's my 2 cents and what do I
I'm
know?
okay to recommend that to the council.
Yeah, I think two. And this is a different world now. I mean, you know what, another thing that scares me too is when you open a position now, everybody can get online and apply for every position there is on earth and never fill the qualifications. But then it comes up to staff that has to go through all those applications and say, you know what, you didn't qualify in the first place. But you know what, it still took up all this time to go back and research. Well, you don't have a BA, you don't have a experience, you don't have X, Y, and Z. I just think it's too complex already, and we need to move on some of these items faster. So I don't know, that's my take. Benito, you hire people, right, at Highlands? And you probably been thrown the book.
Yeah, so, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I would support the mayor presenting a candidate. But, Mr. Attorney, I would ask, I've known that to be the more prevalent, process, if you will, the single candidate presented. Is the two becoming more common, or is the one candidate presented forward still the most common approach?
I've never seen language requiring two.
This is two or more.
Okay, well, then that solidifies it for me. I mean, I'm just in favor of revising that to one, that the mayor moves forward for approval.
Without dragging this on, there has been public pressure and media pressure, especially in Santa Fe. So I'm just giving other examples. I don't know if we've had it here. That managers be the result of a search. I know it's not mandated anywhere. I'm just making you aware of that. It remains a mayoral choice as to whether they're going to conduct a search and then bring their recommendation from the search.
My process required a search.
This language doesn't exclude that option, does it?
Right. Just the mayor needs to
Take
bring the
applications,
recommendation.
screen, make sure they meet the criteria, move on.
Right.
So,
Yep.
so what this is saying is the mayor just appoints an individual, say he had 100 applications.
Yeah.
And the mayor's, I'm presenting this one, not presenting two to you guys, so we could choose from, but I'm appointing this one, then you guys either vote it in or vote it down.
Well, and then another thing too with the two, okay, the beauty contest. I go back to the beauty contest, okay, which I think is an excellent way to present that. So you get two candidates. The mayor has 3 votes on he has 2 votes, or maybe doesn't even know how many votes he has. But the council already wants the other guy. That's the council's check and balance to the mayor, okay? Then after a while, now you have a mayor working with a city manager that he really didn't want him. And then it's about chemistry. It's about, and then it's one recommendation fighting that recommendation. One other recommendation, another fight. So it's almost setting up a disaster when you have that type of deal where you have the council say, you know what? The mayor wants candidate 1, we're all gonna vote for B. That's the end of that deal. And it just creates, we're back to
Only
square one.
remove B.
Yeah.
Just so you know, this question was changed in the 2022 election. That's when
It
was.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are instances, in reaction to a prior mayor right before 22, saying, well, they didn't bring the candidates we wanted. Now, your risk is the range, right? Mayor can, pick their primo, no search, just I choose this person, here you go. Appoint, which actually more often than not happens. They just pick somebody and they present them. Or the mayor can choose, I guess I can say it's most flexible. Mayor can say, this is my candidate, I'm putting it in front of you, and here are the credentials. Or they can say, I'm gonna do a search. But
Well, the thing-
there's always the risk that hey, I'm giving you this person and you're not gonna like them. Well, they have the opportunity to.
Well, to vote it down. The thing is consensus of the council, so that's the check and balance right there. Yeah, and I remember when Debbie did that with her brother in Santa Fe.
Santa Fe.
Yeah, that was interesting. She was interesting already.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good.
And in step B, it does say the person has to meet the qualifications. It can't
Yes.
just be your cousin. My cousin maybe, but not your cousin.
So, and the mayor's got to present that, and it may be subjective, executive and administrative qualifications, but.
The balance is still the check and balance with the council.
Yeah.
You know, the council can say, well, you like the mayor, but we don't, so we're not gonna vote him in. Pick another one. So, and I think in the past what would happen, the mayor kept appointing different people to be the interim and actually asking for that person to be it. They would reject that. So then the mayor had to go back and appoint a different person, you know, so it just kept on going like that for a while. I know it happened here, so we're gonna go back to the one,
Okay.
right?
I-
Everybody?
Yeah, makes sense, because I mean, it's,
So it was one before 2022, Cassandra, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, boy. This'll be interesting.
Okay, I highlighted 5.02, just so you can see evidence of the differences in language when we're talking about when the mayor votes and when the mayor doesn't vote. City manager serves at the pleasure of the governing body, so all 5 members, and may be suspended or removed without cause at any time by the mayor, subject to approval of the council. Now that I'm reading, well, I'll finish reading through it and then I'll tell you where I see an edit. Subject to approval of the council or by the governing body by a majority of all members of the governing body. See, that's so confusing.
That's
That hurts.
I think Gino can take care of that one.
Yeah. So, mayor, by the mayor, subject to approval of a majority of the council.
Yeah.
Of the,
Period.
of the membership of the council, members of the council. So it's a majority of the 4. That means it's a 3 vote, not a 2-1 and an abstention, because that would fail. So it's, you need to clarify majority of the members of the.
I would imagine that you'd want, let's say it's a 2-2 tie. The mayor brought the recommendation, he wants to go through with what he wants to get done. He needs to break that tie.
And that is when we get into that next phrase, which is, or by the governing body, by a majority of all members of the governing body. They just,
And the governing body goes back to all 5.
5. The mayor only vote, see, this is where it gets confusing. Because governing body by a majority of all members of the governing body, here you're telling the whole governing body to vote. But up above, you said the mayor only gets to vote if, in cases of a tie. So,
Well, this needs to match that.
so you would say with the mayor only voting in cases of a tie. Repeat the language back
right,
down.
it has to match, it has to match what's above.
Yes.
I'd say go
match
back and confuse it and use the same language.
Got it. Okay.
So Cassandra, right now, if we don't have a manager, the mayor appoints one and there's not a meeting, you know, an interim,
It's just an interim
Yeah.
for up to 6 months.
okay? Does it go to the council to ask for that? Let's say the council meeting just
In the
happened.
past, sometimes they do, and
Sometimes they don't.
But it's not a requirement.
It's not a mandate,
It's
right?
not in here, right, it's
Yeah.
not in here as far as temporary.
Yeah, I think that's all right as it stands.
You gotta put somebody.
It's an interim one, you have to move pretty quick,
Yeah.
keep operations running.
And it probably could happen the day after the actual council meeting, right? Boom, right there the next day. Something happened bad in the meeting, boom, the next day they're gone. So, you know, you gotta appoint somebody quickly. But I think maybe we should clarify that it doesn't matter, just let the mayor appoint. And up to 6 months, you said?
I believe that's in our personnel ordinance, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know who to ask this of, and maybe you're already trying to figure something else out, but I've never fully understood how someone could be suspended or removed without cause. How is that
You're at large.
fair or reasonable?
It's a longer way of saying they're at will, at will.
Oh, yeah, they're at will.
And typically your appointees,
All right, well,
mayor's appointees are at will. So with or without cause, you're out.
And
But I
Whereas-
understand how it works, but why would you have the power to remove somebody without cause? I just don't see, if they're doing their job and the mayor's a jerk or something, and I'm not saying any mayor is a jerk. It just doesn't seem right without cause.
So typically, having been one of those persons subject to removal without cause, your leadership in government, your leadership team tends to be at will. I get to change you out at any point in time.
It's
You
kind
don't
of
interact
productive.
well with folks, but when you put cause in, you start giving them due process rights and removal rights. You have to prove
Takes
cause.
forever.
Right.
And if you don't prove
Lawyers.
cause, they don't lose their job. And so you can't switch out your leadership.
then there's enough lawyers.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so you're okay with this?
Yeah,
kind
with
of-
cause, without cause.
I'm okay
Okay.
with
It's
the-
traditional.
I know it is.
That happens in today's
I know.
job market.
it's-
I just took a promotion and I just signed a contract that said, they can remove me due to cause, so,
Without cause.
yeah,
Every
It just seems crazy.
executive at Heights is
right.
at will.
Yeah.
Every director level position is at will.
It's just one there.
Right.
That's normal business.
Yeah,
No.
and
New
and
Mexico's an at will state per se anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, New Mexico's at will state.
typically the trade-off is in compensation. It's a higher role, it's higher compensated than your classified roles, and that's the trade-off. I make more money, but I could be fired tomorrow. In the marketplace,
The nation's at will right now, man.
Economics 101.
Especially now.
Did I say?
demands.
Right now, the
nation's at will.
We didn't know that, but it is now.
Back to supply and demand. It drives up the cost of the exempts because I'm taking a chance by taking this role.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all I have on those. I made good notes.
On the powers and duties of the manager, I don't know, I guess in lieu of the fact that we've had this number of crises hit our town, and I see that the manager can pretty much take care of whatever needs to be done. In your mind, Gino, is there anything that can hold back a manager from creating a position, from getting it staffed, from getting it filled, from starting a process to get that? There's nothing to stop the manager from getting that done right today?
The accountability is the budget, typically. So long as you stay within budget, then you can do these things. Now, and not having researched that in both ordinances and even in the charter, there are typically things that you need, org charts and other things that you need to bring to the council for council review, either reporting or actual approval. So there are other checks and balances out there that they just don't get to go hire, their cousin to be the czar of Vegas at $250,000. And if they do that, the ultimate check and balance is, we just put you on the next agenda and you're removed,
So,
because we don't need cost.
So Cassandra, just to sort of follow Dino's comments, right now, the org charts are a big thing, right? They didn't used to be back in the old days, but now they bring them for approval, right?
Council
For approval.
proposed or.
So in other words, it's something, it's coming down the pike, these are the openings we're gonna have, this department's moving around, because now, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, in some places, we're reclassifying people from an exempt position, at will, to now they're gonna be protected, but they're still a supervisor.
Managers.
Yeah, something like that. So, those are also coming through the process in the org charts as well? And does the council have a good understanding of what's going on?
I believe they do.
You do?
They're explained what it entails, and the org chart shows the, who falls under what and all of that, so, and there has to be budget, like Gino said, there has to be the budget for it.
Well, sometimes these budgets, especially after COVID, some of these budgets were left blown up. And that right now, you may have a budget of 300 employees, but you only have 230, okay? So all of a sudden, there's a lot of money in the budget. Sometimes you have to come back and ask council to do the reviews, where you send to DFA. But literally, there's some budgets that are pretty big, you can almost do anything with those dollars, especially if there's for a bunch of people in this area of personnel or that one. I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but I'm saying, sometimes you need stuff like right now, like if I was here today, I'd probably have somebody like a water czar trying to help me figure out what's going on, because you know what, but do you wait for 45 days to finally get things going, or is there something to speed the process up? And I understand the budget, that's 100%, that's the roadmap for the parameters. But sometimes I think you just have to have a little bit more authority to get things done faster.
Well, remember the mayor, the city manager has contract authority too. So it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that, yeah.
I wanted to hit a point in there, and Cassandra, please clarify for me. The city also has, I believe it's a personnel ordinance, correct?
Correct.
So in the personnel ordinance passed by the governing body, they actually define more clearly who's exempt and who's classified.
We don't have to put that here, right?
No.
That's what I remember from the past. Go ahead,
So,
Benito.
Mr. Chair, Gino, just a quick question on 501. I know we usually pass through that.
Yeah.
But we did mention the temporary city manager.
I put a note there.
Okay, so that would go under that section?
Yeah, it would go under that section.
Okay.
It doesn't address the vacancy and the temporary nature of it.
Okay.
So my notes are vacancy, temporary appointment for up to 6 months. That may actually be the
It's in the
practice.
personnel ordinance,
Oh, it's in the.
so I will send that
Yes,
to you.
yeah, if you don't mind sending me that language.
Okay.
Thank you. It should be up here.
Now we're back to attorney.
Okay.
Now we're at attorney again.
We're at attorney with just the highlighted, you'll see in 5.04C, you've got the two candidates language again, so.
So
Is that, I mean, I would recommend we be consistent.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, let's scratch the two and let's go with the
Yeah.
one. I
all
agree
the
with
way
that.
through.
It's not like we're, there's some of these fields that are very specialized. And you don't get two, what do you do? You know what I mean? Man, it just scares me to death. Water rights, for example, back in the day when we had Paul Bloom here, okay? I mean, my God, I didn't know there was other attorney or firms that did it. This one was an out-of-state one. I think they came out of Washington State or Oregon. I'll tell you, man, they could have made another Las Vegas with what they made with our town, you know what I mean? Just crazy. This thing is just crazy because in some cases, we have a number of attorneys under contract. Why? Because they're specializing in those different areas. And in some cases, what if you don't get a second one? So it's just crazy. I think we go back to one, and that's the consensus.
Yeah.
That one's done.
I think we could just,
All the way through.
All the way through and all the.
Everybody else.
Cause it's a yes, no vote anyway, no matter, it's not.
there's a process for selecting another candidate if they want
Right.
to go on vote for.
Okay, and yeah, it shows up a couple more times, so we can go pretty fast.
You require the majority of all members for the removal.
And yeah, same thing with E.
Yeah.
It just needs the clarifications between governing body, mayor that we made in the last one.
And we'll report back to the council that our attorney had no influence on that decision, in any of these decisions at this time.
That's right.
Right.
Current company accepted. Well, and now let's get to Cassandra's role.
I thought she was in for life.
That's right.
That's what I thought.
So here's the interesting thing, with each of these two qualified candidates, right, is that a new mayor comes in to make their appointments, and new mayor says, I like the city manager, I like the attorney, I like the clerk. No, you gotta go get another candidate to compete against your existing clerk, right? So it's another justification for on C, taking it back to
That's a
one.
good point.
Yeah. But I really did think she was in for life. I thought she was like a Supreme Court judge. I thought it was lifetime.
So was your job on the line every time there's a new mayor?
Yes.
Do you lose sleep over there?
Yes.
Good.
Well, if you had an election every year, she would,
Oh, gee.
you know. Yeah, that'd be the,
We're actually brought every year. Now it's every,
so it's gonna be the same thing, let's see. Well, the same wording goes on with on section D, right?
Yeah.
They'll take care of that,
So
Make it the same, so
yeah.
the current city clerk shall remain in office until the age of 70 years old.
Yeah, I see.
Can we put that, we can write that in?
Another 30, that's at least another 30 years, you ready?
And we weren't influenced at all, but thank you very much for the pen. Yeah, we have this great pen, that was the breaker right there.
So actually, here's what the pre-prepare helps us with, is we're moving quickly through this because we see it again at chief of police.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the wording at the bottom.
Got one and same, and then, okay. So we're done with that formatting when we get through, chief of police.
So-
I already changed them.
So if you don't mind, Gino, Cassandra, can you tell us, okay, you have a contractor. We went through all these ones that do, okay, that turn included. So those aren't considered department heads per se, because you guys are like officers, right?
we're officers.
So remind me of all the positions again. It's city manager,
Manager,
chief of police,
Clerk,
clerk,
and the chief of police.
okay.
attorney.
So we had a counselor ask for fire chief. Okay,
But with regard to those requests, would sort of put a pin on that till we get a consensus from the governing
council,
body.
yeah.
Okay.
Has there been a request from anybody about anybody else being an officer, ever? No? And have you heard any, do you know of cities that go around changing officers?
I have not had anyone approach me
Okay.
on that. Okay, that takes us to departments. Now, this is more unique. We haven't seen these before. And I will say, this part is unique. When the highlight I have is 5.07C, you hire a city manager, the city manager puts their leadership team together. Those department directors are exempt, meaning they're at will, except they have to bring it to the governing body. So if they want to change out their leadership team, the governing body has to say, yes, you can. And you run into that circumstance that you talked about earlier with the city manager where they, wait a second, I can't work with this person. We're not accomplishing the city's goals together. And the city council says, no, tough, you gotta keep them.
But he's still being put in charge to make sure that all the issues that are related to the operation of the city is on his back, but now you're putting a crutch on it.
And now you're putting so they can fully document even cause. Look, they did this, they did that, they did the other. That's okay, he's popular. We're gonna say no.
Okay, with that, you just gave us a loaded question there, okay? In my mind, the manager should have that authority to do that without going to council. You giving him a job to do, he's the ultimate person in charge of all the operations of the city. Now, give us, what is like, he'd go back to Santa Fe, but what do they do?
Council's not involved in operations below the appointees. So you asked the question earlier, the appointees or the officers, the CM, chief of police, the attorney, and the clerk. And when I coach, and Commissioner, I'll get to you in just one second, but if I can finish this thought. When I coach, I always tell the governing body, how you get in trouble is when you start meddling in the day-to-day operations business. You go through your appointees, right? But here, and I always say, council has 4 employees, city manager has everybody else, essentially. This says the governing body has governance over everybody else, and over all the department directors.
Including volunteer committees like us.
The mayor does
Well,
that.
there is separate appointment there, but where you have bigger issues is in governing body involvement in employees.
Sure.
That's where you start running into whistleblower, retaliation, discrimination, all of those things.
Go ahead, Benito.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Gino, you touched on a bit of it, but my concern with that wording is you have counselors that are now acting in personnel matters.
Correct.
Is there additional liability the city should be concerned with this type of process?
Yes, that language, the highlighted language, pulls city councilors in now directly into the litigation. So let's say, I talked earlier, now the city councilor is open for accusations of retaliation for whatever reasons, whistleblower protections. You voted for my termination when really the city manager should be dealing with that. Counselor 1, you did that because I'm a Hispanic male over 40. Or you did that because I'm an Anglo female under 40, or any of those discrimination ranges. And so they're opening the city up to liability because now they're down in the personnel decisions, and so they can get sued for that. Now, is the city manager always eligible for that? Always. That's part of the role.
That's what you signed up for as a city manager.
What you signed up for, but now you're pushing the city council into the same risks.
Right. I mean, and you're introducing more variables into that personnel matter, right? In terms of one person, city manager, that assumes that responsibility and liability.
Right.
Now you have multiple. My follow-up to that is, how common is this setup?
I haven't seen it before.
Okay.
Does anyone know how long it's been in the charter?
I think forever. I don't think it's ever changed. Don't forget when these 2 charters were put together back originally, when it was a special charter, we brought 2 towns together. And I think it's always been keep an eye on my primo here, that he's not the only street guy, because he came from the other side of town, that he was a street guy over there. So pretty much what you're asking, and I think we're sort of concurring already to some degree, we're gonna make a big change here and give the authority to the manager,
Right.
or it should be.
Qualify my answer. My answer is I haven't seen this in a charter organization. In some of your municipalities going by the code, all hirings and firings have to be approved by the governing body. They got the schools out of that.
Say that again?
They got the municipalities out of it.
Say that again?
In the municipal code,
If we didn't have a charter, right?
if you didn't have a charter,
Yeah.
then the municipal code takes the final personnel decision to the governing body, which again opens them up for all the liability I just talked about. But in many of those instances, some municipalities don't have a manager. It's gonna be believe it or not, it's a mayor clerk or a mayor administrator, but it's not always a mayor manager. So those final personnel decisions in the municipal code still go to the council for final approval. I would say you've grown beyond that. Number one, by having a charter, and you have a city manager in charge. The leadership team, I've always seen as that's a manager decision. And the ultimate accountability is the manager to the council. that department director has done all these unethical things, they've blown the project, everything's out, boom, boom, boom. You know, we can't fire that manager or that department director. But city manager, if you don't clean that up, it's gonna be your head on the line. And it's up to the.
And sometimes it's
So
been
that's,
your head.
that's the check and balance with it, if this
You know,
language
I
comes
think
out.
another consideration is, it blurs the chain of command in my mind, right? So accountability
Yeah.
could be differing between people in the chain of command, and sometimes that leads to confusion, and I just think I think we're maybe leading the same way, but I'm in favor of that just being responsibility of the city manager.
Commissioner Pacheco, I'll say it a little more directly. You've got a department director on the way out the door. This tells them to go lobby your council. Go work your council.
And they have.
Right.
I've been here long enough to see manager brought it up, council didn't do anything about it, they stayed on. Next time, manager brings it up, they get that person gone. The next election, they get rid of the council, new manager, they bring that person back. So there's gotta be some accountability, and you're right, you're leaving it all up, there's no chain of command. It's lobbying the councilors, and if you only have 2 to go, maybe 3, that's not that many. A good dinner, a couple of lunches, maybe a couple of loads of pinon, whatever it takes, it's a done deal.
There you go.
So I think we're heading in a different direction here as a recommendation. This is a big one.
It is. C and D have these concepts in them. So bringing them in and taking them out. Subject to a majority vote by the governing body. And we're talking about the leadership team.
Right.
So is there a, I don't know, that's not an agenda item, but because right now, the way it's set up, you have to go through this process to bring them to get terminated to the council. But is there a report, Cassandra, that I guess maybe other cities use, where it's the duty of the manager to inform the council of the actions that take place? In other words, I got rid of the animal control officer, I got rid of the code enforcement officer, I got rid of, the planner, but it's all taken care of. There has to be a process where the manager needs to inform the council of his actions. He could do it in a report, I did the following changes, but it's almost like I feel like there has to be like a duty to inform.
Yeah.
So the city manager's report will give you a list of the hirings,
And
people who
how about the other way, the firings?
left.
Yeah.
I haven't always seen that, some do.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Because I've seen some cases in court where the problem is they didn't inform the governing body.
Governing body doesn't know who the land use director is.
No, they don't know that they're gone. You know what I mean? And really, don't forget, the city council is a policy-making board. They're not supposed to get into personnel except for, the officers. So I don't know, I'm just thinking outside the box, but I think there's gotta be some kind of way to inform the governing body of what happened. I know he talks about the hirings. In fact, he's introduced people, right, at the meetings. But almost like there should be a duty to inform about the ones that are not there anymore.
I know our human resource department informs everybody through email. Somebody's not here anymore.
Oh.
So,
If an
Right,
employee,
That's when the
if an,
employees-
if an employee quits, there's no requirement for the city council to approve it. But if the city manager wants to fire someone, it's currently subject to approval. So it does seem like if we do it the way we're talking and not have it be subject to approval, it could be, like you're suggesting, announced publicly that this person has been removed.
I've jotted down some language that I can tinker with. I like the concept that you don't want secrecy, you want transparency. I think at the end of C and D, removing the highlighted language, it could read, and shall report such appointments at the next regular governing body meeting. And then in D, and shall report such removals, leave or removals at the next governing body.
I think it's good to be transparent. There's no, if you take away all of the authority, then you don't know what's going on. And really, you don't wanna get into the day-to-day operations. You really don't. You wanna know about them, but you don't wanna get into the day-to-day.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm also in consensus of, removing the governing body overseeing the city manager of hiring and firing everybody. And at the same time, what we're wanting, I think it'd be ideal for the city manager in his report. Department directors report to the city manager, we've let so-and-so go. So now it's part of the city manager's role
And the record.
and the record to report that to report during a meeting. If we could put that, somewhere in there, because
I think that sounds good.
that's what we're giving the city manager's role to do, is to, do his duty as a role and then communicate things as well.
Okay.
And we're only talking about department directors, we're not talking about the,
That's right.
Yeah.
These are
The
just
rest of
the leadership team, the department directors.
Would that include managers? No,
Department
because they're part of the system, right? They're non-exempt, yeah. Okay,
Okay, good. Good work on that.
that's a big
Do
change.
you guys have
Go ahead.
do you guys have like management meetings, stuff like that, where these are getting reported and things like that?
Yeah, we have our leadership meetings.
Leadership
all the
meetings,
time.
and they'll say like, okay, we've lost 2 employees this week, blah, 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 blah.
Right, within only the department heads.
Okay.
And how much do they meet? Sandra, if you don't mind me asking.
We meet,
Currently.
the day of a council meeting. Every
So once a month?
So monthly?
every day we're.
Oh, twice a month.
And then, of course, we meet with the city manager as needed,
Yeah,
those things we
on
need.
an individual basis, right? I don't know, I just got used to the weeklies. Not that I attended a few of them at the beginning when we had our new city manager, who, I'm very proud to say is now our district attorney, but, back then, he, Highlands graduate, so nonetheless, there was a weekly then,
And actually, our current city manager has been, recently, been meeting with each of us once a week. In addition to the one.
Well, and I think it's more specific to your department when you meet that way. But, I think at least at the beginning, you need to let them know what the plan is, This administration wants to do X, Y, and Z, and we really want you to be on the team, and let's do X, Y, and Z. Don't do A, B, and C, because we don't want to hear that, you know what I mean? But I think it's important that they get the feel of the administration, what's the plan, If we've had X number of issues and they want to start to resolve them, I remember back in the day, not that I'm trying to put any gravy on anything, but we were number 2 in the worst liability communities in the state. And we had a specific meeting to meet, we met with Municipal League, because that's where our insurance was at. And I told them, we need to curb this. I'm a liability person, I came from, hazardous material world. And I said, we gotta change this environment. We just can't have things happening and people just suing the city like crazy. And we went from number 2 to I don't know what number, but at the end of the day, from one year to the next, we saved $500 and some thousand on liability insurance. Why? All we had to do was change the culture. And that's what you have to do. When it's an important thing like liability, especially in this day and age, then we have enough attorneys, okay? But nonetheless, I think you have to be very cognizant about these things.
We do have a risk management, person.
Yeah.
that addresses all of that, under the executive office, which is under city manager.
That's the new thing they did not too long ago. Did they change it for the,
Moved it from human resource.
okay. It's good to know, I think, I hate to be talking about some of the stuff that happened in the past, but it's all relevant. We all have to know how some of these things became what they did. But I'm glad to hear the manager meets with the staff once a week. That's good.
So you have another fan in me of this new process, of the advanced edits, circulating it to you guys.
Yes.
And then we're taking this in. These edits for our next meeting and maybe even in time for the joint meeting, will then go into the discussion draft packet.
Okay.
And for our next meeting, you may want to identify what we need to do in advance read-through of.
So right now, I know we were gonna plan to stay longer, but we also have some members absent. But, okay, so we're looking at Article 6 for next meeting, is that right, Gino?
Future.
Yeah, well, if we're looking at Article 6, we have 7, and that talks about election, initiative, referendum, and recall. That's what we did back in the first committee I was in. And I'm sure that there's gotta be some changes in the state law by now. Conflict of interest and ethics. So if we can get maybe through those ones, so the next meeting, Cassandra, we're gonna be with the mayor and council, okay? So we're gonna be presenting to them some of the suggestions that we're considering and listening to them on what areas they want us to look at, right? Do we have to talk to them about anything we're ready to, we're not 100%, we haven't voted on anything yet.
It's, I call this your listening tour.
Okay,
Here's our work so far, and what are your thoughts? And it's really your listening tour from the governing body. See if you're on track and see if you're not. You know, if you get a consensus, heck no on something, well, you know that you may not channel as many resources there versus these other things.
so then bringing the city manager, when we talk to council, may not be the best thing for him. I'd like to see him talk without worrying about what he says.
Which will be at the next meeting, the next commission meeting.
Yes, not at the joint,
The 26th, I think it is?
yeah,
March, I think it's March.
I think it's the end of the month.
If we haven't voted on anything, how can we tell them what we've come up with?
That's why it becomes a listening tour.
You'll have your discussion drafts
Yeah.
showing, here's what we're working on, here are the options we're considering, and then they can give you guidance for when you vote on the final.
It doesn't do us any good to vote, yeah, if they don't even
So
listen to them.
in regards,
Yeah, so don't, yeah.
in regards to boards and commissions, if you know, and I'm not trying to jump ahead of anything.
Good.
For our next meeting, which is probably not, well, it just depends. Cassandra thinks it'll be a long meeting.
I think we'll take the time that we
Yeah.
utilize, with
Then we
them.
get a hotel room.
So what do you think, Gino, in your experience working it with past folks like us? When they meet jointly like this, the first initial, is that pretty much a long meeting?
You can do a lot in 2 hours.
I would say this governing body will have a lot of opinions.
Okay.
So you're saying
You work with them.
supper's gonna be here.
I'm sorry?
So you're saying supper needs to be here.
Yeah.
Supper and a hotel room for me.
Okay. Okay, so in regards to
Maybe I'll bring
that,
some coffee.
we're gonna be good listeners, okay? And all of us should be there, right? We need to all be here, right? So we can listen to what the comments are,
And
okay?
that's March 11th.
March 11th at 5:30?
That's a Wednesday?
That's same time,
3?
3 o'clock.
Okay, oh, I can get them here early.
Well, you're getting the governing body here early.
Oh, okay.
Which is that?
I've
It's
already
already on-
said yes.
It's already on our calendar.
Yeah, it's already in. Yeah, I can't remember the times. That's why I'll be checking with you all the time,
That's
Cassandra.
a Tuesday?
When, I don't know, I'll check.
Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Because that's the date we had to change from our regular one.
Okay.
Oh, yes, yeah,
We agreed.
yeah.
And then we have our regular council meeting the following day.
So what's the Tuesday?
Yeah, it's a Tuesday.
Can you do that? Be
Yeah,
good if we could all
Can you
come.
resend me the invite, please?
I haven't sent it yet.
Oh,
I'll be
okay.
sending it.
I'm just gonna.
I'll be good until 7:00.
Then he turns into a pumpkin. Well, no, he has to go, he's a exalted ruler now. That is what it is. He's gotta make sure that all the candles are in order. I don't know how that works, but I'm sure there's candles involved. So, Gino, back to the question of the boards and commissions. The only thing that I've heard out there, and I don't know, and other members of the board can maybe give you a heads up on some of the wording. We have people that wanna serve on boards and commissions, but currently it only says you have to be within the city limits, okay? It doesn't even say ETZ zone and all kinds of stuff, but, stop and think about it. Some of these things affect outside the city limits.
Sure.
Utility, some of the things that water, gas, sewer, all those things, they affect, the broader, community that's more than the city limits. So I think we need to visit on that to sort of open that up a little bit. I don't know. Have you guys heard the same thing?
I've had some feedback on that, and I can appreciate that perspective. You know, just thinking out loud for me, those types of groups, or I think the majority should be Los City residents. But you know, so if we consider that, you know, in wording that, it would be the majority city residents, but others could participate as on the board.
Or have a token position for someone?
Yeah, because I mean, Las Vegas, City of Las Vegas and San Miguel County go hand in hand. And there's there's some services that are intermeshed, right?
Yeah.
So
So like the 8th Street extension, the contractors out there, is that city limits? That's not.
It depends what side of the street you're talking about.
There's a sign out there that says city limits.
Yeah, but it's not on both sides.
But they get city, but they get city utilities out there.
Utilities.
Utilities.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah,
get
so that's
gas.
Sometimes they do.
On Don Diego,
On the other
they
side, they
don't
do.
get gas.
yeah, see, it's,
It's very, well, they get gas on Chico and Harris.
I don't know why we
Mullins.
don't just,
They don't have
annex that.
sewer. That's
Why
the
don't we
only thing
just
they don't
annex-
have, yeah.
Well, it's not our concern, is it?
No, but I think we need to
As a
open it up, because
board.
right now, I think they've had a hard time filling these boards.
No, I think
Well-
it's definitely,
See, the other thing is that when you're thinking about the boards, is that the requirements haven't changed in however many years, I don't believe.
You
But
probably,
the population of the city has drastically changed over the course of that time, right?
And committee members are supposed to represent each ward too. So many from this ward and this ward and this ward, and that makes it even harder to get people to fill them.
not in all committees.
Right.
And utilities, this
Keep in mind, and we'll look at the bigger, broader in the chart. Keep in mind that a lot of, some of our issues are created in ordinance. So when the committees get created, some of these restrictions are occurring in ordinance and not necessarily in the charter, but it's a good discussion. It's a good
Okay, so I have one more question, Cassandra. So I know at one time, we struggled back in the day to have an ethics, what was it? Huh? An ethics policy, I think at one time, they tried to come up with some wording that, you know, we had some kind, the governing body had ethics, okay? I'm sure we should have it for everybody, but do we, is there,
We do have
it's
one.
part of the personnel,
We have one in place.
okay. But is there one in place for the governing body? Okay. Has that been looked at or reviewed?
Not recently,
I don't know if that,
we have it in place.
can you get us a copy of it just to take a look at it? Yeah. Sometimes it's better for us to handle it than them.
and that comes directly from municipal league, the
No.
ethics.
No,
So, yeah, there's sort of a change and sort of not. I tour the state training on ethics to our municipalities. I just did a presentation 3 days ago in central New Mexico. And so around 2017, somewhere in there, the legislature made the Governmental Conduct Act apply to municipalities. It didn't before. It only used to apply to state entities. Now it applies to municipalities and other local governments, including the schools. And so what you have is a really extensive default ethics code. But the enforcement is by the State Ethics Commission, which is also new. It's 5 or less years old. So it's enforced by the State Ethics Commission. I do talk about the benefits of having a localized ethics code also, so that you can enforce local things and you can always make things a little bit more strict. So for example, one of the examples I use is ethics code says you should disclose real and potential conflicts. you shall disclose outside employment. But in your ethics code, what you can do, and that's typically by ordinance, not necessarily in charter. In your ethics code, you say, okay, here's how you disclose your conflicts. We want you to fill a form out every year by July 1. And here's how you disclose your outside employment. And then here's how we hold you accountable if you don't. Because we don't necessarily want everyone running to Santa Fe and making a complaint there. Let's make a complaint here and let's fix it here. So I do always recommend that there be a local ethics code.
And Lord knows how many financial annual disclosures I did for boards and commissions, statewide boards and commissions.
Something in Santa Fe in their code, when I was city attorney, there's always an allowance for certain types of gifts. But it said, if you take those gifts, go file something with the clerk's office to be posted on the website so that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And, the example was, the most common example was tickets to the rodeo, right? And it was within the limits for employees. By the way, counselors had one threshold of gifts, and appointees had another threshold, and then regular employees had another threshold. So for the appointees, like the attorney and the clerk and whoever else, we'd fill out a form and we'd put it up on the website. Gino Zamora accepted, 2 tickets to the rodeo. And then that was transparent and I could be scrutinized for it. So it was things like that. The other things are, that's not in the code that I've seen at a local basis is disclosure of participation on boards. And so we may not think about this, but I'm a counselor approving a contract with Yaffle on whether or not they can use the park for football. But over here, I'm president of the Yaffle board.
Or my son's the coach.
My son's the coach, right? So what are these other localized disclosures we should be making that aren't necessarily called for in the Governmental Conduct Act?
Not only disclosing, but recusing themselves if they're voting on
That's right,
something that involves their employer.
that's right.
Or
Now,
themselves.
that's covered in Governmental Conduct Act, but we can localize it. Yes, we can provide greater clarity locally. Yes.
I know that we have the political activity piece here. Have you seen that anywhere else?
There are interesting things in a charter that are typically in an ordinance. I'll do more research,
Okay.
because I really haven't combed through this section. I've been living
No, we're
section.
just giving you a heads up, Gino. That way, you can take a look at it before, because this process that you put in place works really good. In fact, almost all of the stuff that I had already earmarked, you had it highlighted,
Nice,
so,
okay. What was the last question, Mr. Chair? I'm sorry.
wait, I'm getting a senior moment here for a minute here.
All of us together.
Oh, was it the ethics?
Yeah, we were talking about conflicts and disclosures and
Oh, no, the political activity.
political activity.
Yeah, there, thank God it came back.
Still got it.
We still got it. It wasn't completely COVID that got me. Members of the board, anything else we need to bring before the commission today?
Mr. Chair, what is the assignment for the board to read Article 6?
Yeah, the ones that we talked about, let me go back. I think it was 6, 7, and 8,
That is by not this next meeting, but
the next.
meeting.
The next meeting we're gonna have is the joint meeting. I don't think it'd be appropriate for us, if it becomes a long, meeting with the council, for us to stay till, 3 o'clock in the morning the next day, trying to finish our work. So I think we just need to just take care, we'll look at this for the 20. Actually, after that, there's not much left, So I
This will
think
be for the next meeting.
this will be the
26th.
26th of March. Okay.
Okay.
Is there any other new business that needs to be brought before or any business to be brought before the commission? Hearing none, I will entertain, before I finish, Gino, Cassandra, anything else?
Anything further from me?
Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting for today, and I thank you all very much for being here.
Make a motion to adjourn.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion, second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We will see you the 11th of March.
Right at 5, that's good timing.
We're all turned off now, you can turn us off.
Well, we're right on the dot at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
How'd you manage that, Chair?
No, it was the attorney and Cassandra. They know what they're doing over there.
Yeah, like